My name's Sean Lakin. I'm the Senior Curator of Photographs at the Australian War Memorial, where I look after a large collection of photographs, almost 1 million photographs in our collection, a collection that dates from 1861 through to today, and I'm also responsible for developing that collection further. The benefits that Picture Australia brings to our collection at the Australian War Memorial are numerous, and I think that the most basic benefit for us is the way that Picture Australia brings to our collection quite a broad audience, a much broader audience than we would probably necessarily attract in the first instance. And if people are looking for photographs of the social life of Melbourne in 1941, they may not necessarily come to our collection because there might be some presumption that, our collection's only interested in military history. The second point to make is that Picture Australia places our collection material alongside photographs from other collections in ways that I think are incredibly beneficial for both researchers and for collections themselves. I mean, we've got photographs in our collection that I think, can probably only make sense when they're placed alongside photographs from the National Library's collection or from any of the other picture collections that are involved in Picture Australia. So there are correspondences around subject or theme or idea that Picture Australia sort of brings out in collections that I think are really useful. They help make sense of collection material by taking our photographs outside of the, very particular premise of the Australian War Memorial as an institution.
Hi, my name's Johnny Barker. My Flickr alias is Johnny Before, and I contribute to Picture Australia's People, Places and Events. Myself mainly do street photography and in particular the social documentary aspect around Central Station in Sydney. And what I find refreshing about street photography is the spontaneity of it, the fact that it's not contrived, that it's moment in time. And Central Station is such a amazing melting pot and representative of Sydney in so many ways. There's so many different cultures and people from the country, city, overseas. I think it's incredibly important that people within the community can engage with Australia's visual culture and contribute to it. And the advantage of something like Picture Australia is that they can do it on a daily basis, and things that can often seem mundane or everyday in a visual context often aren't. And it's just exciting to see the range of images that you can get there and for them to be archived. And I mean, they'll prove hugely beneficial in the future, I'm sure.
My name's Catherine Martin, and I'm a production designer and costume designer, most recently on Baz Luhrmann's film Australia. I discovered Picture Australia when we started the research process for Australia. Baz is very focused on documentary evidence and picture evidence to support the screenwriting process. And particularly when you start exploring a period and a place like the Northern Territory between the two wars. Picture Australia have one of the great photo collections from the Durack family that really describe and illustrate that particular period in the top end. Of course, people are very important, how they looked, what they wore, all manner of sometimes very obvious detail to very obscure detail. We might be looking for saddles or particular saddle detail because we're trying to corroborate an anecdotal piece of evidence with an actual photo so that we can give someone a reference as to how to make a particular saddle. Or, for instance, there is an Indigenous strand to our story, Australia, and to find what Aboriginal stockmen were wearing, what was an appropriate hat, all those kind of little tiny strange details. What would a stock camp have looked like? You can read about it, but it's actually trying to find those pictures. One of the great things about Picture Australia is you can do specific word searches, and so we looked for a lot of interiors, interior furniture details, so that we could actually design sets that had some basis in fact. But in terms of all that social detail, it's very difficult to find that. It's very difficult to find it illustrated. And it comes from a wide number of sources. You can see pictures of the Linfield Cinema in 1935. So it's a very broad cross-section of images. It's not just from great photographers or from famous people. It's all kinds of people who've donated their photos that might have some significance that might not be at first apparent, but ultimately, for someone looking for social detail, will be. It's that thing when you're sort of desperately searching for a picture that might illuminate a problem you have, and you type in gator, and by some complete stroke of luck, a picture comes up. They're the sort of things that make it particularly unique and particularly useful in an applied field like filmmaking. It would be incredibly difficult to do the sort of research we did without a resource like Picture Australia. I had to do research before online resources existed, and it was very time-consuming, very expensive, because you actually had to go to the place where the records were kept. It was very inefficient because you had to ask for books. You then had to find enough 20-cent pieces to actually photocopy the images. You had to go through a long and protracted process once you'd found the image. You had to fill in a number of forms. You had to wait till that could be copied. Here, the process is absolutely streamlined. If you find a picture that you find relevant, interesting, and you need it at higher resolution, first you have it immediately to show someone and confirm that actually the information's relevant. Then the process revolves around a few emails, and almost instantly you can get a high-res scan with all of the uses described clearly and what you're allowed to do with it. So you know how much it's going to cost you to use it, for what purpose, and the paths of communication are very clear. That's what makes Picture Australia very important. We're a very young nation, and I think as time goes on, we want to reinforce our own identity and sometimes revel in it, sometimes feel ashamed of it, but continue to document it and reflect on it.